Today we are joined by Vikram Shrowty, the CEO, and Safder Raza, the CTO of Elvity AI, an AI-powered go-to-market engineer that automates a number of your go-to-market data processes. I can't wait to dive in, guys. Welcome on the show.
Yeah, super excited to be chatting with you guys today. Let's just start with the founding story. What was the problem in sales or RevOps that led you to build this platform?
Yeah, it's a interesting story. At least for us, it's interesting. So we're actually data product builders for the longest time. We were building enterprise data analytics products, enterprise data security products. But right before Elvity, we founded a company ourselves called Divebell. This was in the data security space, and this was our first taste of kind of consuming data products. We were like building them for the longest time, and it was first time kind of running GTM. So marketing, selling, supporting, all that stuff, doing it ourselves, and that gave us a real concrete sense of how much of GTM is a data problem and how many problems in GTM are data problems. And we had that lens on being data people. And so we're looking at like marketing, like, hey man, we run all these campaigns. We'd like to know what profiles of users are likely to convert to paying customers. Well, that's a data problem. You've got leads coming in. You want to prioritize them based on who they are, fit for the product. That's a data problem. Okay, you got these customers now. Some of them are churning, or you're trying to upsell some of them. You got a free trial. Like, how do you drive that? How do you optimize your efforts there? That's a data problem. That's a hard data problem. Right? And like we saw, sort of, as a small company, you have limited resources, right? If you're a large enterprise, you have a team of data scientists, and they snap your fingers and like, hey, go build this thing for me, automate this for me. Actually, even there, it doesn't quite flow that easily, but that's a different matter.
Never is. Yeah.
It never is, right? But at least you snap your fingers, and a month later, something go there, right? If you're a smaller place, like forget it, right? You're either like battling spreadsheets or just letting stuff fall on the floor. Right? So that's kind of like this problem space we decided to go after. Our mission is to give every GTM team, not just the large enterprise ones, but to give every GTM team a data team in a box, right? The ability to automate a wide variety of GTM processes and analyses just by asking. Now, these days, you'll hear the term GTM engineering being used around this discipline. So, if you are fond of that kind of terminology, you can think of Elvity as your AI GTM engineer. Although it can do so much more than that. If you really want to use that terminology, I would say you should call it like the AI GTM super engineer or some such. It's too much of a mouthful, but that's probably more accurate.
Yep, that makes a ton of sense. And I'm hearing go-to-market engineer more and more. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And so who is the core customer that's using Elvity? Is it SDR managers, sales leaders, RevOps teams?
CROs and other revenue leaders are the ones who get the value from our product most perceptibly. Our users and so fingers on the keyboard people are more on the operations side, right? And so the pain points you address kind of go from pre-sales, like lead enrichment, scoring, things like that, prioritization, routing, and post-sales, stuff like which I mentioned earlier, minimizing churn and driving upsell.
Great, great. Well, let's dive in and see the product.
Let's do that. So let me share my screen. So actually, before that, a little bit of context. So, uh, as I've already mentioned, right? It's a data team in a box. We can automate and analyze a wide variety of sort of problems and use cases. But for the purposes of the demo, I thought I'd pick an area that's particularly interesting. I think. So it's an area, actually, a problem in an area, and it's an area where we are getting a lot of customer interest and traction in, which is, if you were to boil it down to a phrase, customer retention and upsell, right? So pretty much every SaaS business wants to keep the customers they have, right? And even better, upsell them to some higher tier, right? Or if you're a PhD type of business, you got all these free trial users, you want to, do what you can to convert them into paying customers. So it's a fairly broad area, but let's pick one sort of sliver in there, which is churn risk, right? I want to know if any of my customers are at risk of churn, and then I want to know of it and then do something about it. Right? So let's solve that problem with Elvity. And along the way, we'll talk about how hard it is to solve without Elvity. So I start building a flow in Elvity. A flow is the thing that automates things. It's your unit of work, if you will, in Elvity. And this one's, I just started it and it's currently blank, except that I have connected it up with the data of interest. So in this use case, there's product usage data from Segment, there's good old Salesforce, there's Zendesk for support ticketing information, there's call transcripts from Gong, and so on. In this case, I'm using data extracts because it's easier for the demo. But of course, everybody can connect to the live systems as well. We have 50 odd connectors at this point. Okay, I've connected up to my data, and now I tell it my requirements, right? So I basically tell it, in this case, I say, hey, analyze the data and help me determine churn risk in my customers. It's a very high level statement like that. Right? So I push the button and it goes to work. And by the way, I've saved snapshots of the flow building process to make it easier to sort of tell the story in the demo. It's no fun watching a spinner for, even if it's 60 seconds, it feels like a long time. So I just save snapshots. So I told it that, and it thought for a bit, and it came back and said, hey, I can help you with that. I will, build a plan and build this for you, but I need a little bit more information. So you're kind of having a conversation with the tool, just like you would if you had like a human, data team at your disposal. Right? So it's like, yeah, I can do that for you, but I need some more information. Right? So in this case, it's saying, yeah, I look at your data, and based on that, I can analyze churn risk and give you that report you're looking for, but I need to know a little bit more. So for example, hey, what's the threshold of ACV? Because you probably don't care about customers, who are below a certain, ACV threshold. What time frame are you thinking about, right? And then can you help me sort of understand what sort of events in your product usage are, signifiers or denote sort of high engagement? Because somebody logging in is good, better than not logging in, but there's certain activities they're doing that really denote that they're highly engaged. Like, tell me some of what those indicators are. Right? So it's having this conversation with you, and I kind of go back to that and say, okay, let me tell you what that is. So I tell it, okay, so for the ACV, 50K is the threshold, and then the renewal date, in the next quarter. And these are the events that signify engagement or signify sort of high usage. Right? So tell it that, and I push the button, and off it goes again. And again, I go to the snapshot. And now what it does is it comes back with a plan, right? Again, very much like a human data team would, right? Like, hey, thought about it. This is what you're planning on doing. What it's done is it's looked at my data. It's kind of, looked at the requirements, the back and forth that we had. And based on that and its judgment and knowledge, it's put together a certain plan. And we can produce it, right? Like, what it's going to do is it's going to get, at-risk accounts from the CRM, filtering on a certain ACV, and then, those whose renewal is coming up in the next quarter, is going to look at their engagement data. It's looking at those events that we talked about earlier, right? It's going to assign a certain risk level based on that. Like, hey, somebody hasn't done much in the product for the last X days, that's risk. Somebody hasn't done much in the product for a really long time, it's even bigger risk. Right? Then is going to look at, call transfers from Gong, support tickets from Zendesk, and based on that, sort of upgrade or downgrade the risk, assign a risk category, and then finally generate a report. Right? So put all this together, it's put it in front of me, and it's like, hey, if this looks good to you, I can go build it, but perhaps you want to make some changes, right? So I can have a conversation. I can say, hey, there's another risk category I'm concerned about. So I can tell it that, and we'll go and update the plan. And so you kind of have this iterative conversation with the tool, agreeing on a final plan that captures your need. And once that's built, you say, okay, go ahead, and it will take off and go and actually build this fairly sophisticated automation that's going to pull data from various places and process it, analyze it, and so on. So to give you a flavor for that, I will let you open the hood a little bit. Let's take a peek under the hood to see what's built. So I'm going to the data flow view, which, if you want to kind of know what's going on inside. what has it built? What are the concrete steps in the automation that it's built? You can kind of go and look at it. Now, looking at this, you may be reminded of some other products in the space that kind of make you connect up boxes and so on, right? Hey, if that happens, then go there. If not, then go there. They're making you program, right? They don't want you to um, think of it that way. They're making you program, right? It's just that instead of a text editor, you're kind of doing it visually. Hmm? And oh, you can program? Well, you go hire a GTM engineer or something, right? That's kind of like how these products go. In our opinion, bad approach, right? With Elvity, you don't have to do that. As you saw, this whole thing was built by the tool itself. So we had this conversation about the plan, right? A sort of a business definition level plan. And then it translated it, it built the boxes and corrected them for you. Right? So I like to say we are beyond batteries included. We are like operator included as well, right? Like Elvity comes with a engineer packaged into it, which builds the automation, tests it for you, and even maintains it on an ongoing basis. And if you're from the data world, that maintenance point is super important. I like to say, like, we've been in the data world for so long. So like there's three certainties in life. There's a debt, taxes, and data drift. Data's going to change, stuff's going to break. And with other tools, you're kind of scrambling around, people scrambling at the last minute to try and fix things. Elvity, none of that happens. It built it for you. It can fix it for you as well. So you're looking at this fairly sophisticated flow that it built. We look at the results in a minute, but before we do that, I want to kind of give you an appreciation for what's happening behind the scenes. Now, one key piece, especially in the AI world, everyone knows about hallucinations and the propensity that LLMs have for making stuff up, right? So you do not want to blindly trust AI, right? You want to use it with oversight, with transparency. You want to be able to make sure that what it's doing is actually what you want, right? And so to that end, I can go like all these steps, I can go exactly and look at what's going on. Like, hey, what are you doing on this step? Oh, it's analyzing customer feedback to determine a primary risk category. Oh, really? What does the data look like at that step? And I can go and actually look at the data inside. Right? Now, not everyone needs to do this, but if there is any question, if there is any, sort of like you present a report to your boss, like, hey, this is what our, at-risk customer report looks like. And the boss is like, how do you come up with that? How do you calculate this? Well, the answer is not, I don't know, it's that GPT told me, right? It's something very concrete. You can point to it. You can see this is the exact computation that went into that. Okay, so let's stop nerding out. Let's go back to the actual business requirement. Right? So it built it for me. We agreed on this plan. It built the automation for me, and I have my have my list of high risk customers. I push that button, and it shows me a spreadsheet view. Let me switch to the report view. It's a little easier to read than the spreadsheet, which is over here. Right? So this is kind of the overall summary. It's giving me the exec summary at the top. Hey, these are the accounts. This is the amount total ACV at risk. This is the risk level. Then account by account breakdown, like, hey, that's the account manager. This is the risk level. This is how much money is at stake. Why the risk level is what it is. And there are also some suggested actions that the tool is recommending based on what it's seeing happening on that account. So that's a use case, one use case in this area that we've solved with Elvity. I guarantee you with pretty much any product, this would take you weeks at least. And here it's 10, 15 minutes tops. And you could probably appreciate by this point, it's a very broad tool. So it's not just about customer churn or upsell. It's pretty much any data automation or analysis in GTM land. It's like a few words and minutes away at Elvity.
I have one question. I think hopefully a go-to-market engineer or someone on the RevOps team is going to be pretty good at understanding what data to pull in. Can it make recommendations though of other data points should be considered as you use it over time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you ask it to solve a certain problem, it will often come back with like, so I'll use a concrete example from just yesterday. I was working with a customer on this. So lead enrichment, right? Like, hey, he had a list of leads and like, hey, I need to this. So it's like, yeah, I can do that. But if you have a LinkedIn account, I can do some serious enrichment. I can reach in and pull in to see what the leads activities on LinkedIn. And that will really give me good signal. So you can make recommendations like that. And you can tell it, no, just do what I'm telling you. Or it can be like, oh, good idea. And then it'll kind of, shepherd you through that process as well.
Yeah, one other area that we're working on is just building the semantic knowledge around your data. So, in addition to enrichment, when you connect your data in this demo, we kind of uploaded CSV files for just the demo, but like Vikram was saying, we can connect to your data, live data. And in that process, we also augment our knowledge about your data, that this data source this has this kind of data stored in it. So we can use that semantic layer to recommend changes or not ask as many questions as an agent or a tool that has no information about your data.
Yeah. Yeah. When it's all connected, it's like, oh, I see this data sitting over here. I think that'd be valuable. We recommend we use it. Yep.
Yeah, but it's also, I think, helping, and that's, guys, you answering all my questions. So, that's awesome. um, but I think it's important that the customers and the users have access to the semantic version, because they just often just don't know what data they have. Like they have no clue, right? If you have a layered organization with the multiple managers, right, or directors, etc., it will rarely just be surfaced like that, right? And I understand that people who just have hundreds of people reporting to them, they will never get into that granularity. But I think when you get into a conversation about some strategic decision, you might want to vet this, right? And then there you go, right? You just don't know what the source of that secret sausage that somebody's presenting to you is, right? In this case, it's a little bit easier to comprehend. But if somebody would try to explain, what's the level of usage of data, and then you have a multiple products, and then you have a customers that buy multiple products as well. You have some level of penetration on these accounts, and then you go. That's becoming a very, very complicated exercise, right? Even if you are fluent data scientists, you would have a difficulty to do this quickly, right? And so the semantic, I think, element is helping a lot. um, but I have a question for you. So I'm pretty sure you have some like real cases as well, right? Like, what are the products that you implement your product into your customers' environment? You have any example that maybe you can just share, and explicitly talk about?
Yeah. So we have customers who are using our tool for lead enrichment. I think I just mentioned that a minute ago. Lead scoring. Then there's one customer, the pretty large biotech company, who are using us for. There's actually the product managers are using us for win loss analysis. Like, hey, we lost deals in this last quarter. Like, why? What is the common theme? What features are we falling short on? So there's that. Then there's one customer who's using us for data onboarding. Their customers, like the nature of the product is such that customers come with certain data, which these guys then work on, and everyone shows up with a different shape and size of data, and they have people whose job is to kind of do the stitching, or they used to do that. Now, Elvity's been told, hey, this is what the data needs to look like at the end of it. So Elvity works with their customers. Like, you got data? Hang on. Oh yeah, I can use that. I can do that there, that, and I can use this data. Or like, no, this is just missing this information. Please come back with something else. So they've gone from 6 to 7 weeks of time in onboarding to like just a day at this point.
Yeah. For them, our goal, they were kind of quoting us that they are right now onboarding about 20% of their customers. 80% of their customers, they just don't have the bandwidth, and the goal is to onboard 100% of them, because the data that gets onboarded is used in their product to enrich the quality of data that they produce. So with that, you can see that though we are 100% focused on GTM, the application is actually even broader than GTM. Like this customer is using us for specifically for data onboarding. It's not exactly GTM, but product operations is always adjacent to these this software. Customer success is being, and I've heard, being roped into product now as well, because everybody is trying to increase revenue at the end, and there's multiple paths to it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the post sale is under pressure to retain the customer, so that's getting them closer to to the product and usage of the product and adoption in general. So I don't think this is unusual, right? That they asking for it. Um, uh, but I think the fact that the product itself is coming to you and is trying to retrieve a lot of that information, proactively, that's, I think, a little bit more on the novelty side, right? I mean, um, I've seen multiple teams that actually have these individuals coming, but it's just more was less on a kind of as a trend, right? I've seen this more like kind of a somebody was smart enough to really start making that ask, and they wanted to just understand, where we are, or you had someone that was actually dispatching this kind of entire feedback across the organization, multiple functions. So yeah, I can see this. So I have a question for you guys. Like, what is the model that you're using behind? Is this something that you know you attach this to someone, to the one of the big one? You layer this kind of with your secret sauce. I'm assuming yes, because I see a lot of stuff that simply can't get from these models. So what is behind this? Right? Please don't reveal any secrets. Okay.
Really? I was going to tell you that there's a team of 100 people sitting here quietly writing the code. So,
Yeah, we use obviously carefully calibrated Gemini is our core GTM engineer. So it's a set of agents which are based on very carefully calibrated what context it sees, and those agents help you build the flow, come up with the plan, build the flow, and maintain the flow. That's the main thing they do. So those are primarily uh, Google's Gemini, based on Gemini. But when you actually want to do the task itself, so once you have built the flow and you want to run it, the tasks themselves are mostly model agnostic. So you can bring your own model, you can bring your own keys. It's a very effective way to keep the cost down, because when you're running these tasks, these flows over and over again, that's where the cost can rack up. So we let you bring your own model, bring your own keys, whatever you need to do based on, depending on the level of complexity of the task, right? So so that's where you can bring your own model.
and I'll just add a little bit on top of what Satar said. So, um, when the thing is running, you saw those tasks, as we call them, those boxes in the flow, right? Uh, in most cases, uh, only a small subset of them are actually making LLM calls, right? A lot of it is a regular data flow. And this is where we're able to get a degree of determinism that's so important. If you're going to compute some key metric for people to make a decision on, you don't want to just trust what an LLM did. So the LLM is used to build the flow, but when the actual data processing is happening, for the most part, LLM is out of the picture. It's an old school, and I say that with pride, a data flow that's running.
Yeah, like simple tasks, right? Filtering data or cleaning it, or all these tasks are data tasks that don't need LLM. And and we purposely, strategically try to minimize the LLM tasks. There are some tasks that inherently need to be LLM based, but most of them we try to get away from.
Yeah, like
using
spinning
LLM.
out this doc is an LM feature, obviously, and it's going to be better. If someone doesn't have their own AI models, do you just offer the Gemini model to them essentially? Okay.
So they have different ways in subscription. We completely take on or ownership of all the cost, or we can pass. You can take over some of the cost around your
Very cool.
LLM.
Very
Mhm.
cool. I want to talk a little bit about integrations. I run partnerships in my day job, so I'm always interested in this. And you mentioned you have 50 connectors. I'm assuming a lot of those are just kind of standard API connectors of whatever data sources do you want to pull in, or is there anything special that you're doing there?
So we connect to all sorts of data sources, your SaaS application, all the tools that you work with, but also a lot of data is just sitting on, for a lot of customers, data is sitting on um, uh, the cloud infrastructure, like your S3 buckets, your Azure, or your Drive, Google Drives, your OneDrive. So we connect all Snowflake. Yeah. So
Like a lot of product activity usage, especially that kind of data, like events and so on, is sitting in people's Postgres database application.
That makes sense. And I'm curious where you're pushing the data out to. So you just showed the Google Doc, you can create a report. I think I'm assuming you can push data into Slack as well. Anywhere else?
Yeah. So the way our system works is that it can connect to all your favorite tools, right? And behind the scenes do the data processing and at the end push the data to wherever you want. You want it in your database, you want it in your BI tools, your Slack, wherever you want it. So we don't want you to get off from your regular workflow. You want to complement it so that you continue working the way you're working, just more efficiently.
I'm curious how you feel about MCPs making a rise, and if you've thought about building into, say, like a HubSpot or Salesforce agent and what that kind of looks like.
MCPs uh, are going to be very effective, but one thing that we worry about, especially in the data world with MCPs, is around their scaling. Right? They're very good at in our world we call this push down, where you have a complex query and you can tell it and it will process the data. But as long as that data processing happens within that MCP server, right? But if your data is across multiple stores, you have to pull it out, right? You cannot do it in that store. That's where MCPs kind of don't work, because then they're just streaming data. At that point, you're just talking to them as a database. So they have their place if that's your use case. But often you're working with multiple sources, doing more complicated data processing than what a normal MCP server will offer.
Yeah, like my experience is like if it's a point quick answer that you want on some one specific thing, you'll probably be using MCP. If it's across the board, 360 visibility or some larger process that has to be automated on ongoing basis, you're going to have to go outside that to a tool like ours or similar.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see like where people want to work. So like the use case I look at that is like, well, your chat feature could live inside of Gemini and or Slack or wherever, and then they're just the go-to-market engineer, whoever is having that conversation with your tool. It's all happening. You can link them to the flowchart. You could even embed the flowchart in the chat GPT. Like I see that as probably the most relevant use case. I'm sure there's plenty others.
Yeah, actually, we're working on a Slack bot right now. So the only experience that right now you have to have an Elvity product is that building of the flow, and we're working on a Slack bot. If you prefer your conversation to happen in Slack, that's completely possible.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about salespeople, it's like, I'm like, how do we get it? We service marketing and sales teams that use HubSpot and Salesforce. And I'm always like, how do we get it into Salesforce? How do we get it into HubSpot? Like, why don't we stay in the tool that they're used to using? Slack is always another good option too. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if some of these AI tools actually become the place that they operate from, and then that becomes super relevant.
I mean, I feel like Slack is becoming that actionable tool for a lot of organizations.
It also, for a lot of our customers, is a source of the data itself. Like all your customer chat for customer churn, one of the more important source of information is Gong and Slack, because that's where all the conversation happened, where we found out that the customer was not happy.
A customer -B, they create all these channels. And if you want to know how a customer is actually feeling, you won't find it in any system except in that Slack conversation over there.
That is such a good point. Yeah, and we think especially like our enterprise customers, not only are we talking to the customer, but I'm having like a million Slack conversations about that customer and the different things we could do. And so to have something that could pull, sometimes I forget. I'm like, wait a minute. I think I had that conversation with these 3 people. Oh no, wait, there's one more. Okay, well, let me now go and find those so I can pull that data out. So that's truly you're right on the money there.
Yeah, and I was wondering about it, Salesforce. How actually Slack will start cannibalizing some of the features on Salesforce, right? Because it's definitely something can improve and evolve and to be more user friendly and reflect more kind of how the individuals operate in the function. But Slack is already go to. I mean, kudos on acquisition, guys, but I'm not sure if you're not shooting a foot, at the same time. So yeah, we'll see what it's going to take us, but definitely Slack is the place that is replacing a lot of things. Because that's where we communicate, right? That's where we're sharing the information. Um, so speaking about the sales, like actually, I was thinking about this because you showed us the cases more on post sale and kind of how we preventing something to churn. but I'm thinking about the sales in general, like on the acquisition side. How would you recommend to place that your tool in the existing process, right? We talk about Slack, we talk about a Salesforce, Gong, and now, okay, so I'm going to use Elvity as well, or Elvity will be my backend tool, just to answer questions. How do you see that?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the biggest frustrations sales reps have is messy, incomplete, scattered data, right? So, they imagine getting into a sales call, getting ready for a sales call, and all your data is scattered everywhere, and you can't trust it. And you can jump across 5 different spreadsheets to find it. Um, Elvity works behind the scenes. It'll connect to all your sources, make sure your data is ready to go, it's trustworthy, so that when you are getting ready for a sales call, you can trust the data. So it's not another tool that you're going to use. It's something that's constantly working in the background, making sure that you don't have to use 5 other tools. You don't have to jump through 6 tools, 3 spreadsheets to get to an answer that you want. It's actually going to reduce. We're hoping that it works in the background, reduces the number of tools that you use, and you continue using the tools that you're comfortable with. Like I said, for most people, the interaction would the only interaction is during the build phase, which we think is going to happen once, and then it's done. You are now in that workflow. It's just happening in the background, and you don't even have to think about it.
If I'm a rep and I operate with a set of accounts or territory that is defined, and I'm looking for a few intelligent, very personalized, and custom processes that are related to these accounts. I can set up the LVD, on the back end. These processes and workflows will just be set up, and then automatically I'm going to receive that on Slack. So every single day I'm coming to the office, I already know what to do, and for that reason, I shine. I'm closing a lot of deals, hitting my quota, getting rich, Lamborghini, living nirvana for the rest of the year because I already closed this in a Q1. Right? I hit my quota in Q1. That would be a fantastic. Is that how I should think about
Yeah,
this?
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, all jokes aside, I mean, that's how our customers use it, right? For one of our customers, related to churn risk, right? All the data is pushed to uh, to their Salesforce, right? So they come in the morning, they have a ready to go list of top 20 customers that are high risk. Now I can call them, I can talk to the account rep to make sure that I know what to do. So this is an example of how you can, um, uh, it's just working in the background every morning. You have the top 20 instead of guessing.
Is it gonna connect to like Google Calendar and like when you have a meeting, set up an automation to send you a Slack message essentially about that prospect or customer?
Well, you just give them an idea for the new feature. I think
Hey,
I think I think we're getting a cut. Sounds like to me.
yeah.
Yeah, there are lots of, obviously we are early in the game, so there's lots to think about. But right now, most of our customers use like a scheduling system, like every day or every month or every week, you want to do this for me, or I click a Slack button, button in Slack, and it will go run it for me and give me the answer.
You have the Google setup at least with Gemini that could be pretty easy to do. But there's many other schedulers as well. So an idea for you. I like to offer those too. Uh also just to touch on, is Lamborghini how you say Lamborghini in Europe?
Yeah, that's how we say it in Europe.
Is that the correct pronunciation?
I mean, look, I don't know how good is your Italian, but
Not very good.
Yeah,
Uh
I've been calling it Lamborghini all my life.
I've I've only ever
I,
said Lamborghini.
yeah, as long as you can give me one, I don't care if it's
I'll call
Lamborghini or
it yeah.
Lamborghini.
I'll call it whatever you want. We've touched
oh
around this
God,
we've touched around this a little bit. But in terms of, supporting enterprise customers, how do you maintain compliance with privacy laws? It's not like bring your own models. I'm assuming you're not cross-sharing data. But anything else that you're really focusing on to make sure you're complying?
Like we were saying in the beginning, our background is actually, our previous company was in in data security. So we take that very seriously, and we have kind of already put in strong standards around security standards around data and operation. For most security conscious customers, we offer ability to deploy the whole platform in their infrastructure that give them the whole control, right? Nothing's leaving anything. Gemini offers enterprise level deployable version that, so everything, nothing leaves the customer. In addition to this, we also give them fine-grained data controls so they can define what data moves where and who has access to it. So kind of built it, so or through RBAC, through because of our privacy background, we kind of know that, okay, there's going to be some fields that we have to auto detect, auto mask, or remove if that's needed.
Yeah, Slack. Even when we're talking about Slack, that's an interesting one because I'm like, oh, can it go into private? Do I want this tool to have access to my private messages? Well, if it's just for me, then yes. But if it's for the rest of the company, maybe not. So, like, there's things like that too.
Yeah, considering your background, guys, I figure that you're gonna have a pretty good answer for that. I believe you.
I mean,
Uh,
we get obviously this is a topic close to my heart, so we can get to very minute detail of
Should we pull
there's
out a
like
security architecture diagram and let's do that.
Talk to Demetrius about it. I don't care about it. Obviously, I just said I don't want all my Slack messages pulled in when I know my company has access to all of those. So
I hope they don't listen because they're gonna not check.
Oh,
So
I
somebody
mean,
will
given
check. Is like, what is she hiding here?
yeah.
given our
Um,
previous company, they have access to every company
Oh.
has access to everything.
I
Yeah,
know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just assuming they're not going to look, but who knows? Now my CEO is going to listen to this and be checking soon.
well, it really depends how entertaining this is.
That's the thing. If you're boring, you're safe.
Yeah.
That's my motto.
Exactly.
I mean, we have so many horror stories from our previous company about like what kind of what can be searched for. I mean, most companies don't, right? They're looking to protect themselves, so they will look for things that will harm them. But we have stories around freely shared passwords and compensation records, it's all in the open. So yeah.
Need to do like an anonymous episode where you just tell us all the fun stories of data.
Yeah, we're gonna modulate his voice. He's gonna do
That
secret
company.
source. Secret source. We can't reveal. And now is the story, right? I have a question for you guys. Actually, I want to shift gears a little bit. And ask you, the AI co-pilots, right? So these things are just everywhere. They're popping up right and left, right? So, so what makes Elvity different?
Typically, what you'll see is one of the main points of differentiation in my head. A co-pilot will typically live inside a tool and help you answer questions about how to do certain things within that tool. Right? And it's conversations. It's very rarely a sort of an ongoing process that you're setting up. Right? Whereas in Elvity, it's kind of like, no, it's across the data ecosystem. It's across multiple tools that you, it's the level that you operate on. And then, so there's the chat aspect of Elvity, as you saw, right? That's probably what makes you think, oh, Copilot, right? Yes, but then I will remind you of the stuff that gets built underneath. Right? So you can think of, the analogy I was using earlier. AI has Elvity has the operator included as well. So the operator that's packaged in, you can call that a co-pilot. We don't, but you can call it that, right? But that's a piece of the puzzle. Then what sits underneath is this data infrastructure that actually runs and gets you the answers that you want. So it's way more than a co-pilot.
Yeah, it's not just so because of our data background, the product can process huge amount of data. We don't care how big the data is. So that's one piece. So having the right infrastructure to process large amount of data. But again, another thing that Vikram mentioned, one of the most common things in data world is what we call data drift or change. The data coming in is changing constantly. And we were talking to one of the customers, their data team spends 70% of their time fixing things that broke in this space. So you have built your workflow, it's working for 2 months, suddenly broke because something had changed, right? So they were telling us that they spend 70% of their time building this. A Copilot will help you build the initial flow. What about when it breaks? You have like most of our users are not going to be technically savvy enough to understand what happened. That's where again Elvity comes in, figures out what went wrong, gives you a user-friendly way of describing what the problem was, and even give you suggestions how to fix it.
Um,
So
but yeah, that makes a ton of sense. You just said something that made me think. You said we don't care how much data it is. How do you price this? Now, if it's living in AWS or something else, and you don't have to tell me the cost, but like, does that, if they're hosting their data on you, does that come into the factor of pricing?
So we have there's the model in which you our data hosting, that's $500 a month. If you want to go for the enterprise option where the platform is deployed on your side, your data lives on your side, you want to use your own models, call us and we will have a conversation.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And I'm assuming there's some limits there on how much data can be processed on the $500 a month. Yeah.
yeah, there's limits on the upper limit on but right now, we want to solve problems. If you have lots of data, let's talk. We'll figure out what we can do.
Yeah, of course, if you have a lot of data, the cost, right, is the concern, right? So, of course, you don't want to finance somebody's business, right?
Yeah. Lots of ways of mitigating the cost. Like we were saying that we have the capability. If you don't want to host the whole system in your infrastructure, maybe you don't have it. We can even just ship the data processing to your infrastructure
Oh,
and
cool.
keep the platform on it. Yeah. So
Okay.
we also do a hybrid approach.
So you kind of run the compute node, which does all the heavy lifting. Only that lives on your side.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No. Kind of look like zooming out a little bit and we can talk about Elvity, but at a broader level, like where do you see AI primarily driving do you see it as primarily a driving efficiency or effectiveness in sales? Like what do you see as the broader trend?
I think we believe that effectiveness is more dictated by context. Like more LLMs in general know a lot, but they don't know a lot about your business, right? They don't know a lot about your data. So, in order to make good decisions, they need that context. So, I think that if there's an AI tool that can understand that context, it'll be more effective and make you more effective. So, I think it's the broader context, the broader business needs and business information that would drive effectiveness. AI would definitely improve on efficiency, like through automation, through just the software. Dealing with software is so much easier now. Like one of our customers is using Google Ads, right? Google Ads has a way they have their own query language that you use to get data out of it, like what happened. Whereas with LLMs or like Elvity, you can just ask it in natural language, which just makes the whole experience better, more efficient. You don't have to guess. So I think efficiency is definitely going to be driven through automation and through these kind of improvements. But effectiveness is more, I think you have to know what you're doing. LLMs don't help you there that much.
Google doesn't like its data to live outside of its little walls. So especially in the ads business.
Oh man, no wonder, right? Like this is the business. This is where it really is driving the revenue. Come on, like you won't give away this.
Have you tried export a lead list from LinkedIn Sales Navigator?
Yes, yes, exactly.
And LinkedIn, the whole ecosystem is unwieldy.
Yes. Yeah, efficiency, it's like a no-brainer. Like if people aren't already, I mean, I wanted to come up with a guide for our APIs the other day to send to a partner. I threw in the link to the API guys and I said, write this up to pull out CTV data. That saved me, I don't know, 2 hours. Like, and I had to make a couple edits and 10 minutes later I sent off. So that part of it, it's like a no-brainer. The effectiveness, it really does still come down to the human. I mean, AI cannot replace the human's ability to create a relationship and convey the information that the AI is providing them in a way that's effective. So in sales in particular. So I think, it's like, does the customer need that? Well, it depends on the customer, and that's a different conversation. But humans are still important.
Yeah, no. For judgment, yeah. So humans are important. Their judgment is important, And then in context, it's just not that, it's also the data that you've already collected, right? That's not available to LLM. Again, so when I say context, I meant both the human judgment and also all the data, all the product data that you've collected. The LLM can't do anything without that.
No, it's not a good data process. Well, it's good at processing a lot of data. It's not good at collecting a lot of data yet. So
Yeah, let me challenge this a little bit, guys, because I think about this more and more recently, and specifically about the trigger and the moment where actually that importance will start just whining. Just gonna come down, and in the sense that we will intentionally start removing ourselves from some of these things, because this notion of, okay, I'm automating my admin work, or I'm becoming more efficient. I mean, yeah, that is pretty much what we already figured out, feels like. Now we get into this phase where the data starts becoming more meaningful, and they are available more, like, on the you know on demand. But at some point we're going to feel comfortable with this, and we might start giving away our prerogatives to the math, and the math will start deciding on our terms what what is best for us, what's not. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't think we are there, but I think eventually that will happen. And once we give them the power to make a decision, I mean, we're going to live in a very different world. And I think that admin optimization starts having a completely different meaning.
One could say that this is to some degree already happening with social media, right? Like there's certain algorithms that are making decisions on inside the bowels of some data center, which to a large degree influences my worldview, right? I have, without realizing it, delegated how I see the world to an algorithm running somewhere. So to some degree, that's already happening. Hopefully, it stays in pockets like that.
I mean, that's where I think a lot of I mean, not to get political, but there's a lot of regulation that needs to be accompanied with what we're doing with AI. Like as we start to hand over the keys, we have to be very careful in what it's gonna do with those. Like you're saying, I don't believe LLMs are there yet. They still make really odd mistakes. So I'm not ready to hand over the keys yet. But if that happens, yeah, we have to be prepared with the right guardrails put in, so it doesn't.
I don't know what you're talking about. We didn't put any regulations on social media, and it's gone so well. It's
So
gone
well,
so
everything
well.
is.
Yeah, define the well for me, but I think
I'm being sarcastic. Well, Australia just passed a law that kids under 16 can't use social media, and I think you'll see. I don't think you're going to see that in the U.S. In the next 3 years.
That led to my daughter's school. My daughter had to get an Instagram account because her school was posting all school announcements on Instagram.
That's because you live in the Bay Area.
My daughter who's in middle school. They just enabled Gemini on their Google accounts, so now they're going through training. I'm like, if I had to say, I wouldn't let 13-year-olds have access to Ellen, not freely, right? At least. So
They're going to have to learn how to use it because it's going to be a very important part of careers. But at what age and when do we do it
Exactly.
and whatnot? So it's going to be really interesting, and I think you're right. And I'm hoping some governing bodies come out even in the industry that help regulate these things and can work. And there might be some. I'm not into the governing bodies like Demetrius says, but the and can partner with government to help them understand it too, because that's like the miss we have in social media is the representatives didn't understand what was happening. And I would listen to like the Facebook CEO talking to Mark Zuckerberg talking to Senate, and I'm like explaining to my wife what the algorithms do because I understand them, but like they're so yeah, we need some intermediaries there.
yeah, I mean, that topic will become even more complicated soon. I mean, to not be only doom and gloom here, talking about advertising, how advertising actually screwed the internet, but um, look at this from different perspectives, how algorithms actually making things safer and the entire logistics. Oh wait, guys, Waymo, right? It's just a lot of people that telling me, my neighbors, actually, you know what? I have no problem to put my 12 years old son into Waymo than actually handing him over to the Uber driver. So I think that perception is looking more hopeful. Of course, there's some risk, but there is a risk with everything we do as a humans. Um, but without getting into these cliches, I think that is more hopeful. I think there's a more um, positive uh, outcome coming from handing over the our lives into the technology that can make our life safer, right? I think about the same thing on the ships. Think about trains or trams, and the entire traffic, right, could be way more optimized and probably safer if without you know humans being drivers. So I know there's a social impact, economical impact on that front. I get it, but speaking specifically about the algorithms, we can't blame them for all the bad things.
Other algorithms, not to belittle this point, but algorithms themselves, obviously, they're just another tool, right? But where I think we need help, like cars came, but they came with regulation. When you need to get a driver license, if you know to drive a car, you have to get a driver license. We need similar things for
AI
these
to drive a car?
AI. If you want to drive a car, you need like the question, if an self-driving car gets into an accident, I haven't looked into it, but what's the regulation around who gets
There are regulations. There are regulations.
what same thing with and you transport that to AI.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's probably a positive thing, right? Coming out of regulation, that if you have something that is not for purpose of regulating and limiting, but just to put the guardrails around this entire process, I think that can be very beneficial because then the industry is moving much faster. They know where the limits and what lines they shouldn't be crossing, right? That, of course, with the assumption that there's enough room to develop things without hitting those limits, right? Because then, there's a different conversation. But in general, I think this is a positive thing that if you set up a rules before even these things occur, with the right boundaries, I think the industry is moving much faster.
Yeah, I think, like, regulations are slow, and our industry or, the tech industry is just getting faster and faster at innovating. Like, if you compare the rise of ads and social to AI, it's insane how fast they're moving. I lived through the social media, evolution, and I'm just like, "Wait, what? There's, like, this new thing. How did this happen so quickly?" So we have to figure out how to keep the regulations up to speed with the technical innovation. Um, Before I go down my diatribe about tractor trucks being AI driven and how I can't wait for that. What are your bold predictions when it comes to AI? Will sales headcount shrink? Will every rep be more productive and we can increase their quotas? Something else? Kind of what are your bold predictions there?
Yes. And I think a lot of this already happened. If your job in that domain is like pretty much wrestling spreadsheets or sending reminder emails all day, you're probably in trouble. Right? But overall, we think every individual, and especially in the GTM world, is going to be like orders of magnitude more effective. Because I feel today, and this is going back to the first question you guys asked around like what led us to build this, like being data people, the inefficiencies we saw in GTM, especially in small to mid-sized places, so like just crazy. And now AI is kind of hitting a big reset on that. So we think every salesperson is going to be way more effective in the new world.
Not to be a Debbie Downer, effectiveness also means that you will need less of people, which is counter. They're hoping that I mean, the hope is that, as with other technologies, new jobs will come, and so that everybody can still grow. But yeah, there is this hanging thing there.
So let me dig into this. Everybody's talking about the new jobs. What are these new jobs?
Who knows?
That's the thing. Everybody feels like there's something just right on the corner. I'm gonna meet this beautiful girl. Finally, I'm gonna get married, right?
We don't know. Like I wager every time, like going back to the Industrial Revolution, every time there was one of these big reset moments, at that point, I'm sure there were people who arguing for and against. And if you had asked the people for, like, okay, what are these new jobs? They would have no idea. But they did show up. The new jobs did show up. Now, I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen now. Nobody knows. Nobody in the world knows. I don't care who you are. Nobody knows.
Who knew 5 years ago YouTuber is going to be a job that people do?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
You
so
can't predict this
yeah.
stuff.
I mean, the optimistic side of me says either there are going to be new types of jobs that replace that people can do, or we'll live in this utopia where you don't have to work and AIs do everything, and you get to live and do whatever you want to do. That's the optimistic side of me.
What are you telling your daughter, Vikram? Like,
Oh, that's a
like
very difficult.
how? I mean, I'm pretty sure you have these conversations. I'm
Mhm.
having a 15 years old daughter, and
Mhm.
that conversation started a long time before. What are you telling her about, like, hey, prepare for that, do this, try that?
Not computer science.
Honestly,
Really?
No, no, no.
10 years ago, my when I heard the advice that do what you want, do you want what you want to do? I thought that was bad advice, because there's certain careers that are more successful than others. I think with the AI, if things keep going the way they're going, I think again that's another reset. So my advice to my daughter right now is do what you want to do, because I'll tell her, if I tell her go do AI or go do computer science, 5 years from now she might end up in the job she doesn't like, in a career she doesn't like, with no prospects of the future. So my advice to right now is keep an eye on what's happening in AI, keep on top of it, but honestly do what you like to do, because
So the pessimistic take on that is we're all screwed no matter what. So what the hell? Just do whatever you like. It doesn't matter. We're all screwed.
One thing that comes to mind for me, and who knows where this will go, but what I'm seeing with the rise of AI and the post-COVID, era is people want to talk to people. Events are back, connection is back, and that is something that AI cannot do. AI cannot do human connection well. Now, maybe it will one day, but I think we're far away from that. Um, and so I think, like, there's been a push in schools to, EQ, in growing your EQ, learning how to connect with people, being interested in different things, being curious about things. Like, that's probably the best advice. And we don't even know what jobs are going to be available down the road. And so if they're interested in something and they really love it, they can probably make something happen in it. Like, it just might, how they make something happen in that area might look a little different. But yeah, the EQ stuff is like the thing that I'm like, if you have that, like, you're better than the AI. So that is one thing that you can go leverage in the future.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like I missed that class.
Well,
Yeah.
that's that we all know. So to wrap this up, I'd love to hear about one or two other AI or go-to-market companies in the industry that you're really excited about right now.
It's a company called Isomorphic Labs, and we're all nine out of 10 people in AI are trying to just make more money. Not me, all the others. But Isomorphic Labs, they're using AI to revolutionize drug development. So they are on and I don't know that space too well, but my wife is in biotech, so she kind of was translating a lot of that stuff for me, and it kind of made sense. Like, as far as my summary of it was, they are on the most realistic path of anyone else in the world to having a pill. You got cancer, take this, you're good. You got Alzheimer's, take this pill, you're good. They're the closest. It's still a long way off to be sure, but if there's anyone who's like, yeah, I can see that extrapolated path taking us there, they're doing that using AI. So, like, hats off to them, at least in my books.
Yeah, as we talked about, like the positives of AI with Waymo, medicine's another area. Their AI is just going to be really good at churning through all the data and saying this is the best course of action. Not to say that doctors won't be, and you don't need a doctor to do surgery right now and all those other things, but the brain power isn't as big. So
Only if there's data.
correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And the right kind of data that's
Yeah. So
clean and ready to go.
yeah, I mean, for figuring out other scenarios, that's probably different technology. That is also on the horizon. So maybe those two will work together very well.
Any others in the tech space you want to share?
So the last one was with some sort of a noble mindset. I'll suggest another one that's out of spite. Luminance, right? So it's a company called Luminance.ai. I think I can do Luminance. So they're using AI to automate the enterprise contract process. It's like, yeah, man, like if you can make that better, I don't know how successful they are, but like, yeah, that's a noble cause in my mind at least. Like there's so many cuts on my body from selling into large corporations, so they're using AI to automate to the degree that is doable. You to automate the enterprise contracting process.
It's the bane of my existence, contracts. And then what are the top 3 tips that you want to share with us?
So one of the tips that kind of we go by is insist on validation. So insist that whatever AI software that you use validates and shows you the work that it does, right? We all know hallucination is a big problem with AI. So uh, having it do stuff in a black box is very, very dangerous. So make sure if you buy software that does use AI, it can walk you through how it came to a result. Even if you were working with AI or LLMs directly, they have this tendency to placate you and give you answers conforming to your own bias. So uh, be very skeptical about it. So always kind of ask it to walk you through exactly how you got to that decision or provide counterexamples. So I'd say like validation, don't trust AI. We just see that all the time. So that's one tip. Yeah, don't trust AI blindly. I think another tip is I think software is going to become hyper personalized, especially with AI. I think the days of you buying software and then building your uh, business flow workflows around it, those days are gone. Now, software, you need to insist that the software that you're using kind of conforms to your processes. Like, I mean, one very obvious thing that we have run into a lot is like talking to going back to the customer churn area, is that before AI, if you wanted to learn about customer churn and you had data spread across multiple sources, one of the biggest things that we heard from customer success folks is that it's so hard. You have to change all your internal processes to mold yourself into so that software, Gainsight software, can understand what you're doing. You like simple things like I'm calling customer A over here and customer underscore A over here is problematic. They can't deal with it, and they tell you to go fix it before. So I think those days are gone. Now all AI software needs to be hyper personalized, like we do. Like if you have to tell it, this is how I do things, and you have to conform around it. So that's a big thing for me. I guess another thing is, I mean, you have to ask all the time yourself, how can I do this? Can I do this with AI? And would it do it better? And you'll find surprising amount of stuff that you can actually do with AI, right? And that's just something that we practice ourselves a lot. And that's how we've been able to create a enterprise grade software with a very tiny team. To end in a positive note, AI can do a whole bunch of work. As long as you understand how it does it, you can get a lot out of it.
I often ask the AI how I can do something with the AI. So, And that's a good way to like kind of shortcut that and understand, is there another tool that I can do this with? And new things are popping up. The other day I made an infographic in Gemini and I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. So yeah, it's definitely a learning curve, but I love that, to like remind yourself, put a post-it up or calendar reminder or something of like, what could I be doing with AI? So I love those tips. Thank you guys for coming on the episode and sharing about Elvity and insights on the industry. And thank you to everyone who's listening and watching. Please go follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn at Market Genius AI. Thanks again.